April 18, 1945. Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Cold spring rain needles the narrow hospital windows, streaking the glass with trembling lines. Inside, the corridor smells of disinfectant and boiled linen, sharp enough to sting the throat. 23-year-old Anna Keller stands beneath humming fluorescent lights in a borrowed grey dress that hangs loose at her shoulders. Her Red Cross armband was removed the night before. Beside her waits Marta Weiss, 27, once head nurse in Cologne, now silent, hands folded tight against the chill. They have been told they will assist in a U.S. Army ward until further review. The phrase lingers like a verdict not yet spoken. On a metal tray near the nurse's station rests a white porcelain mug with a thin blue rim. Steam coils upward, fragile against the antiseptic air. Orderly James Porter, sleeves rolled, sets the mug into Anna's hands without meeting her eyes. The handle presses warm against her palm. She does not drink. Ward C stretches long and pale, rows of iron beds aligned with military precision. Damp wool blankets rise and fall with shallow breaths. Iodine and metal mingle with the faint scent of wet boots drying by a radiator. Anna expects faces to turn away when she approaches. Instead, a young soldier, freckles barely visible beneath bruising, nods toward the mug and whispers, "It's still hot." She steps forward, lifts his pillow, smooths the coarse cotton case, and adjusts the angle beneath his neck. Her fingers tremble as she works. Marta moves behind her, checking a chart clipped to the bed frame, pencil scratching softly. Rain taps harder against the windows. Somewhere down the corridor, a tray scrapes across tile. The mug remains in Anna's hand, warmth seeping slowly through her fear, as if the porcelain itself is waiting to see what she will do next. April 19th, 1945. Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Fog clings low over the parade grounds, pressing dampness into brick and mortar. Inside Ward C, radiators hiss unevenly, clanking like distant artillery. The night smells of iodine, starch, and burnt coffee. 19-year-old Private Thomas Hale lies awake. Shrapnel lodged deep in his shoulder, bandages wrapped tight beneath a coarse army blanket. Sweat cools along his collarbone despite the chill. Anna Keller crosses the ward carrying a dented metal tray lined with white porcelain mugs, each ringed in thin blue. The cups click softly together with every careful step. She believes Thomas will refuse her help. She believes he has earned that right. Marta Weiss leans over another bed, wraps fresh gauze around Corporal David Ruiz's leg and notes his pulse with calm precision. No speeches. No apologies. Only hands that lift, fold, and secure. Anna sets a mug on Thomas's bedside table. Steam rises, blurring the harsh light. "Thank you, ma'am," he says, voice raw from morphine and 2 sleepless nights. He grips the handle. The heat seeps into his palms, steadying them. The ward settles into rhythm. Boots echo faintly in the corridor. A spoon stirs sugar against porcelain. Outside, fog swallows the parade field. Near midnight, Thomas asks where she trained. She hesitates, then answers plainly. Cologne. Surgical ward. Bombed twice. He studies the rim of his mug instead of her face. Nothing flares. No accusation cracks the quiet. Days begin to fold into one another. Thermometers are shaken down. Charts updated. Blankets smoothed. Thomas lifts his arm a fraction higher each morning. Marta times medications to the minute. Anna refills mugs before they empty. But this was not the moment they would remember forever. It was only the slow beginning of something neither side had planned, carried quietly in porcelain and steam. May 2, 1945. Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Morning light filters through tall ward windows, pale and uncertain, catching dust in the air above iron bed frames. A radio crackles somewhere beyond the corridor, voices rising and fading with static. Berlin has fallen. The words travel in fragments, carried by orderlies, folded newspapers and hurried footsteps on tile. Inside Ward C, the atmosphere tightens. Anna Keller feels it first in the silence. Fewer jokes from the convalescing soldiers. Fewer nods. On the bedside table near Private Thomas Hale rests a white porcelain mug with its thin blue rim, half empty, a faint ring staining the inside. Beside it lies a newspaper, headline creased by a restless hand. Martha Weiss adjusts a curtain to soften the glare. Her fingers move with practiced steadiness, yet her shoulders hold a stiffness she cannot quite release. She has seen victory before. It rarely softens memory. Sergeant William Carter, newly arrived from another ward, watches the German nurses with open curiosity. His jaw tightens when he hears their accents. Anna notices. She expects the shift to come like a slammed door. Thomas reaches for his mug and finds it cool. Anna steps forward without being asked. She lifts the metal pot from her tray and pours carefully. Steam blooms upward. The scent of weak coffee cuts through disinfectant and wool. Still hot, Thomas murmurs again, quieter this time. In the hallway, Lieutenant Robert Green pauses at the threshold. His boots leave damp prints across the polished floor. He studies the scene, the German nurses, the recovering men, the porcelain cups in steady hands. Martha straightens and meets his gaze. She lists supplies needed: gauze, penicillin, clean linens. Her voice does not waver. The lieutenant nods once and steps away. Relief does not arrive with celebration. It settles gradually, like warmth returning to fingers after cold. Outside, trees along the base road show the first full bloom of spring. Inside, the mugs are refilled. Charts are updated. Bandages are replaced. And the ward continues, suspended between what ended and what might begin. June 14th, 1945. Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Early summer humidity presses against open windows, carrying the scent of cut grass and distant motor oil. Sunlight pools across the polished floor of Ward C, softening the edges of iron beds and metal trays. The radiators are silent now. Flies hum lazily near the screens. Private Thomas Hale sits upright without assistance, his sling removed, a thin scar tracing his shoulder. On the bedside table rests his white porcelain mug, blue rim faded from constant washing. He keeps it near even when empty, fingers brushing its surface as if confirming something solid. Anna Keller approaches with measured steps. Beneath the saucer she slides a small folded letter, edges worn from rereading. The paper is thin, foreign stamps pressed into one corner. Her brother writes from Bavaria, alive, uncertain, rebuilding among ruins. Her hands tremble as she sets the cup down. Thomas notices. He does not ask questions. Instead, he reaches into his drawer and draws out an envelope addressed in careful pencil. Ohio. His mother's handwriting slopes gently across the page. He places it beside her tray without ceremony. They exchange only a glance. The ward smells of starch and sunlight-warmed cotton. Martha Weiss crosses behind them, collecting thermometers into a kidney-shaped basin, metal clinking softly. Weeks compress into quiet progress. Thomas practices lifting a tin spoon. He walks the corridor once, then twice. Anna changes dressings, folds linens, pours coffee into the same porcelain rim each morning. The real shock came later. On the day of discharge, Thomas asks if he may keep the mug. Regulations are clear. Anna studies the supply ledger, then writes his name carefully and marks one entry damaged. She wraps the mug in hospital linen and presses it into his hands. That evening, the bedside table stands bare. The absence feels larger than the space it leaves. September 1972. Columbus, Ohio. Afternoon sunlight slips through lace curtains, warming a modest kitchen painted pale yellow. A refrigerator hums steadily beside a wooden table scarred by decades of plates and elbows. 46-year-old Thomas Hale stands at the sink, drying his hands on a dish towel worn thin at the edges. His shoulder aches when rain approaches. the scar never fully forgot. He opens a cabinet lined with newer ceramic sets, thicker handles, brighter glaze, and reaches instead for a white porcelain mug with a faded blue rim. A thin crack runs from lip to base, repaired long ago with careful glue that leaves a rough seam beneath his thumb. He sets it gently on the table. His daughter Emily, 12, braids and all elbows, watches. "Why keep that one?" she asks, tapping the crack lightly. Thomas fills a kettle, sets it on the stove, and waits for the low whistle. "Because it was given," he answers simply. He pours hot coffee into the mug. Steam rises, familiar, steady. He remembers antiseptic air, radiators hissing, a grey dress beneath fluorescent lights, a nurse who steadied his shaking hands without asking for anything in return. Across the Atlantic, in a small Bavarian town near Munich, 51-year-old Anna Keller sits at a narrow kitchen table of her own. The plaster walls hold faint hairline cracks from another lifetime. She opens a letter bearing American postage. Inside rests a photograph, sunlight on wood grain, a child's hand near porcelain, the same blue rim unmistakable despite the years. Her breath catches. Martha Weiss, now retired and visiting for coffee, leans closer to see. The room smells of strong German roast and apple cake cooling on a rack. Anna traces the image with one finger. Later that autumn, Thomas travels to Germany for work with an agricultural equipment firm. He carries the mug wrapped carefully in shirts inside his suitcase. In a quiet cafe near Munich, wooden chairs scrape softly against stone floors. No uniforms. No rank insignia, only age in their faces and silver at their temples. He places the porcelain between them. They do not speak of politics. They do not revisit blame. They speak of children, of weather, of small gardens behind their homes. Outside, church bells mark the hour. Some objects endure not because they are unbreakable, but because someone once chose mercy when fear would have been easier. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who believes small kindnesses disappear. Sometimes they last a lifetime.